Here we go. Now it came through. Okay, how is everyone doing tonight? I'm excited to be here, excited to host. I hope we have a good turnout here. I've been monitoring what's all going on. Looks like we have 30. That's great. Good turnout tonight. Let's see. So I suppose it's 10 after. I'm ready. I hope you're all ready too. Let's get started. Welcome to MASG's first ever virtual meeting. I'm so glad that you could be with us tonight, and there's going to be a lot of learning here. I've had a lot of learning to do on my end, so I appreciate you bearing with me. I'm just going to arrange my screen here so I'm all set to give you all the details. First up, I suppose it's best to introduce myself. I'm Rachel Patterson. I am the web editor for the Madison chapter of the American Sewing Guild, and I'm super excited to be here. I really miss everybody, so I'm glad to extend a virtual hug, handshake, high five, whatever you prefer, to all of the sewists out there, and just feel like we're connected. Oh, and we have cat involvement already. Apologize for that. Okay. So while social distancing is currently keeping us apart, I want to reach out to you and spark that little bit of creativity. I know we've been stretched thin as sewists lately, sewing for each other, friends in need. So I want you to be able to take this minute tonight to just do something fun for yourself. And we've got a couple of messages to bring up here. We have a couple of announcements. From first, our community sewing chair, Lisa. She wants everyone to know that she does have fabric available from the Guild stash. If you are in need, I know we all have a fair stash, I mean, let's be honest, but if you really want that big yardage to be able to do a massive undertaking, she has got you covered. If you contact her directly, you can find her contact info on our website. I'll have a link summarizing any links I bring up tonight. I'll have a summary on our website. So you can look for that. Specifically, she says those pieces of fabric are 2 to 4 yards each. There's about a dozen of them. So she's got you covered, and she can coordinate a porch no contact pickup. Another announcement from our MASG member, Liz. She sends her thank yous to everyone who helped make the caps and booties for Freighter's MICU. Our group, along with a couple other local ladies, made 72 sets of shoe covers and 158 surgical caps. That is amazing. Well done. I can say myself too, I had a lot of fun making that. I used some fun fabric from Feast and Forage from last year, so that got another new life into another project. So I'm glad to help that cause as well. And now we have a message from our president, Lorraine, and I'm just going to switch on over here so you can see it.
Greetings, Guild. Welcome to our very first virtual group meeting. And we have Rachel to thank for this, because without her awesome tech-savvy ability to do all of these computer things, we wouldn't be having a virtual meeting. But thank you, Rachel, for all the help in making this possible. As I mentioned in the letter I sent out on Saturday, please respond and let us know how you felt about this virtual meeting, how it worked for you, if it was easy enough to access, so we can make any changes or whatever you think would be better. I also want to thank the CAB, because in the last 3 or 4 weeks, there have been a flurry of emailings going back and forth. And the CAB has been so involved in helping me figure out how the Guild can best respond to the COVID-19 crisis and how we shouldn't respond, and things are changing every day. Now we all know that the CDC wants us all to wear masks when we go out, and those can be homemade masks. So Rachel has posted on our website, and I mentioned this in the letter I sent Saturday, a page, a resource response page that lists places that need masks, places that need other sewing things, and ways that the Guild can help. One of those ways comes from our own Grace Hospice Center. They desperately need masks because as of yesterday, they were completely out of them. So think about them and think about adding your efforts to all of this huge response that sewers can make, or sewists, as you prefer, can make for this huge need across the country and locally. In addition to singling out Rachel, I would also like to give a shout out to Kathy Olig, who stepped up and did a wonderful, informative, and entertaining, as always, newsletter to cheer us up a little bit. And this is an extra newsletter because, as you know, those newsletters come every other month. But she did an extra one just for keeping us informed and entertained in this hour of need. So please do check out Rachel's list on our website. It's on the bottom of a link is on the bottom of the home page, or you can go to the meetings page and find out how to look at that. And please do consider joining this effort. Since we are sewers, we can sew, so let's do it. The other thing I would like to mention before we start Rachel's tour of her sewing room is she said to me recently how much she's missing the Guild, and but how strangely, in a way, she feels more connected because of how much we've been emailing and talking about things. And I feel that way too. I've been really involved in communicating with people, finding out what the best thing for us to do is, and it's increased my sense of connectedness. And in fact, I'm feeling the connectedness to everybody, the whole country, and how much we are interdependent, not just with our merchants and our service people, but how much we depend on other countries too for what we take for granted. So let's try to think of ourselves as a global community. All right, let's turn this over to Rachel, who's going to give us a tour of her beautifully remodeled sewing room that she did herself and won an award for. So Rachel, take it away, and we'll see you all perhaps another month in a virtual meeting, certainly down the road in a live meeting.
So here we go, back onto our talk. My rec room and the entire basement really were a mess, and that's putting it lightly. This inspired me to do the talk tonight. And I have a lot to share. As you can tell, I've already dived into it, and I don't even know what I'm doing yet here. So here's some background for you. We had just moved 3 people and 2 cats from a 3-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom plus loft apartment, and back into a 3-bedroom house, but one without an official basement for storage. The beauties of a raised ranch design house. We were already kind of crowded, and we welcomed another little person to our family, which then forced my husband's office into our already crowded basement, which is now pure chaos. My breaking point happened somewhere between the surprise visit from out-of-town family, where I was deeply embarrassed to show them the episode of Hoarders that was going on in our downstairs, and the need to contain my crawling baby on the old, disgusting shag carpet infested with sewing pins. We needed a change for everyone's health, safety, and sanity. So this is the beginning of my craft room renovation. And now that you've got the little hook, the little teaser here, I will let you know that the beauty of this format tonight is that you can pause, you can come back. The pictures aren't. I'm sorry, let's do this. Sewing room design. Okay, so you've heard me do the spiel already. You've seen the pictures. Now, let's go ahead and start. Well, kind of see the pictures. I'm not sure, so we'll go slowly through them. All right, but it's a mess. I don't want to look at these pictures anymore because, frankly, they are stressful to see. They are a year ago, but really, it feels like it wasn't that long. This was something I want to put in the past, and we are going to move forward with organization because that is super important. So, can you relate to the madness going on in my previous room? If you've been considering making a change in your creative space, then this talk is definitely for you. If you feel like your space is working pretty well, there is still a lot to learn. Maybe you'll realize that you might be making do unknowingly with something that's very fixable. So, disclaimer, just like I am not a professional content creator, though I am in training here, I don't have actually any training in organization or design formally. I am just a big residential and universal design nerd. So file this talk under the advice from a friend category. I briefly worked in construction, so I'm familiar with that realm, but nothing close to professional. So if you've decided to make a change, I've broke it down into 5 phases: observe, learn, logistics, action, and share. So phase 1, observing. This was roughly from when we moved in to when we got serious about planning. And this can take as long as you need. It's all about gathering ideas and imagining how they would fit in your space. Dreaming is often the easiest part. It begins when you say, I wish this would happen. You may search Pinterest for ideas or visit craft rooms of friends or notice handy setups during classes or retreats. So you want to make a change in your sewing room. Great. But before you move anything, stop and consider. Obviously, something led you to consider making this change, so write it down. Write down every little thing about your room that bugs you. Can't think of it offhand? Well, start working on a project from start to finish and keep a notepad next to you. Narrate the steps that you would take out loud as if someone is standing right next to you and that they would be using your space next time to do this same task. Every time you find yourself adding details like, you'll have to move X out of the way first, or it's a bit of a reach, or you'll have to dig through this unorganized, overcrowded, haphazard area, you know those are things that you need to change. Write them down. Here is my list of the things that I wanted to change, my quick little notes that I kept going back into, and they proved to be a good guide. So how did it get this way? How did the room become such a disaster? You may have a knee-jerk reaction to say time, laziness, or being stretched too thin with too many commitments, but it's possible your space is not serving you. I love this picture from Organizing Solutions for Every Quilter because it looks exactly like my before picture. It helps me realize that change was possible. So what do I like and want to make better use of in my space? For me, I really liked being so close to the natural light, where my husband's area is on the windowless side of the room, and I like having big, open, dedicated space. I liked how some of my things were stored out of sight, and I wanted to push that concept further and keep the space feeling open and uncluttered still. And again, those are my good notes right on there. So what does my space say about how I tend to work? Are you meticulously organized, or do you create among the chaos? Don't fight your natural style. Go with it. Some crafters need to see all of their supplies out in front of them, and others find it overstimulating or distracting. Inside the Creative Studio is packed with tips like this, and I'll talk all about the great books I used in a minute. So these questions finally gave me the guidance I was looking for. My space wasn't working, but I had been working in it for so long that I'd become numb to the exact inefficiencies. Now I had a plan. Plus, my daughter would be sharing the space with me, so she went through those questions too. We compared our styles and concluded that we would require different solutions within the one shared space. I should note all of this presentation will be online, and you can go back and answer those questions for yourself and for anyone else who's also sharing the space with you. So given all of this thinking, I could identify these basic goals for my space: safety, warmth, a clean look, efficient storage, useful crafting space, and a friendly feeling for visitors. This room had so many uses that we really had to break it down into all of these. It's a family room, it's a craft room, it's an office, it's a guest room. I had to cover all these bases. So my dream space would also include an electrical outlet on the craft table or the island in the middle of the room, mirrors for fittings, similar to what I had in my old room. I had them on the backs or the insides of my cabinets. Access to the understairs storage area. Our only storage closet in the room was under the stairs and in the tiniest little corner of the room, and right where I wanted to put a desk. So that posed an added challenge. I did not want to shut that whole corner off. I wanted to still be accessible. I wanted to have a vented craft area with a powerful fan, the ability to close it off so I could have stinky glues or any kind of noxious things, nothing too extreme, but just something kind of annoying. I'll close it away and have a fan running just to let it cure. That needed to be located near an electrical outlet for the fan, so I made sure to note of that limitation. And finally, the addition of a door for basement privacy for guests or for sewing all-nighters. And you can see a picture there of the pocket door that I assembled. There was nothing there, and it is attached to the drywall next to an I-beam, so that was quite the engineering challenge. So phase 2, learning. Our phase was March. Oops. Sorry about that. January to March, but really the learning never stops. When I start a project, any project, I do a ton of research. I immediately start requesting books at the library. That is what I do. That's first, library. I started with books on residential interior design and home office. Oops, I don't know why it's doing that, sorry. And home office design. There's plenty of information on basic furniture layouts and colorful books on building an attractive, motivating, and personally significant space. But craft spaces are not standard offices. We need this open space to create, and we have more stuff to store. This led me to peruse the home storage genre and search for creative ways to utilize a given space. However, this genre was too broad, and there was just endless examples of beautiful entryways, and that did not relate to my wide open basement space with 0 doors in it. Finally, the phrase workshop design started to bring more answers. While 95% of these books are woodworking workshop designs, the other 5% is focused on artist studios. Bingo! So here are my favorite studio design books. Organizing Solutions for Every Quilter. This is not just for quilters. All sewists should read this book first. If you read only one book about organization, make it this book. You will understand your space on a much deeper level and know what needs to change. Dream Sewing Spaces, a Palmer Plesh publication. This book set the standard for sewing room design. Each sewing related activity is broken down into the exact requirements demanded of a space. Ergonomics is as crucial to sewing as it is to any other physical activity. Includes tours of real life sewing spaces, though many of them do kind of look dated. It's from 96 to 2010 was the update, but it's still a very, very good book. Creating Your Perfect Quilting Space. Sewists tend to make do or deprioritize their needs, but in reality, the number of hours we dedicate to making high quality items warrants a carefully thought out space. This book displays the full spectrum of small craft closets to 500 square foot workshops and zero budget reorganization to the full professional gut job remodel. A great resource to visualize what you want to accomplish and how much you're willing to tackle. And not just books, there's some great podcast resources. These are two I found. The Love to Sew podcast, episode 130, specifically looks at your space and organizing it. And then there's one podcast called Declutter and Organize that is only about this topic. Both of these podcasts discuss the pros and cons of where your space is located. I think that's a really interesting point. If it's not right next to your main living area, on another floor of the house, say, or it's in your basement, you might feel tempted to forego sewing at the end of the day, especially if it's kind of unorganized and a disaster too. But watching TV, say, isn't as fulfilling as creating, and you get a little boost of energy when you push yourself to go create. And this happiness and fulfillment is so good for your health. So much so that people tend to liken it to therapy. Focusing so much of your time and energy on changing your creative space may feel selfish at first, but the time you put into organizing your space will make your work more efficient and more enjoyable. And making sewing a non-negotiable time is also helpful. You benefit, your project's recipients benefit, and those around you benefit from you feeling fulfilled. So win-win-win across the board. Finally, these are a couple more worth checking out for more visual inspiration. There's plenty of eye candy in here, and also a good website in there with a list of solutions for specific items that need organizing or specific activities. So back in 2019, feels like a little while ago, okay, so a year, last February, at our Super Show and Tell, I asked MASG members to submit sewing room design tips, and many members commented on their ideal cutting table. That was like first on the list for everybody. Okay. Many members said that a cutting table that is the right height is important. The table should be high enough for you to work from a standing position. We have fans of IKEA make your own tables. You choose the type of tabletop and type of legs you prefer. The legs are very sturdy and adjustable. The most popular cutting table size was 30 by 60. I agree. I have that size as well. And another member said, put a layer of batting or a wool blanket underneath your cutting mat. You can push pins through the mat and hold projects more securely in place. And that's something I still want to try. That's a really good one. So my cutting table is actually two dining room tables sandwiched together. It houses a small pull-out ironing board, a light box, which my cat is showing off in that picture, and organizes my rulers. You can see them on near the center of the page there. There's a couple of wire racks that I believe are for office organization. You can also look for cooking, cooling racks would also work. And then it has an electrical outlet built into it. I don't often stand at my cutting table, so it's a slightly lower height than others may prefer, and I can cut from a seated position. I'm a big advocate for universal and accessible design, which means that any age and any health status can use this space. It's always worthwhile to consider future accessibility needs. On that same note, my sewing surface is a bit higher than usual to accommodate my neck and back issues. The desk surface is butcher block with a smooth epoxy glaze, so no snagging any of those fancy fabrics. I stained it to match the floor, and it's pretty, but it's not as craft resistant as I had hoped. A laminate or a low finish wood surface would have been better. Stone is great and heat resistant, but it's pricey, especially when you need 16 feet of it. I spent about $450 for the countertops, stain, and glaze, which was pretty budget friendly. The mantra of fabric organization, or any good organization, should be no stacking. As in, if you can't see everything all at once from one view, you're doing it wrong. Would you store your books on a bookshelf like in the top picture? Not if you wanted to ever find a particular book. Don't store your fabric like this either. Here's an MASG submitted tip. Use pre-cut comic book boards or cut your own sheets of cardboard to fold your fabric into uniformly sized stacks. These are easier to line up on a shelf, like a shallow bookshelf in this picture, and there are many YouTube tutorials explaining exactly how to do this. Plastic storage bins seem to be a necessary evil in the sewing world, and I understand that they're hard to do without. If you absolutely need them, fold your fabric so you can see a narrow strip of each color from the top, or use a shallower bin so that you can do this, and anything so you're not stacking and hiding fabric only to find it 20 years later. You know the deal. So take this as an example. Does this count as stacking? Think about this for a minute. I would say no. You can see everything from one view. The deeper wire baskets up top are easier to see into, and the lower bins are shallow enough so that nothing is fully hidden. Imagine if these bins and shelves were opaque. You'd instantly lose track of 90% of this collection. So cottons play well by these rules, but knits can be tricky. However, it's still possible to not stack them. Roll up your slippery fabrics and use selvage cutoffs or ribbon scraps to bundle them up. Store them vertically in shallow drawers. It is well worth your time to roll up your stash like this. I can't even begin to estimate how much time it has saved me already. So on the left, avoid this. It's not bad per se. Some of my linings do end up getting stacked like this because those are so impossible to stack or to line up, I should say, vertically. On the right, that is the ideal. And knits do very well with this technique. Knits, fleeces, those kind of structured ones. So a few more fun sewing room features. Most important to include is design wall, your cutting table, pet beds. Pets are a great company in those sewing hours. Music, inspiring artwork, and vertical clear storage, preferably movable. And another member mentioned Rust-Oleum magnet spray for hanging up pattern pieces right on the wall. But be sure to use heavy-duty magnets for those. These fun little features, I think, are a great part of the process. It doesn't have to be Pinterest perfect, but little touches of inspiration and personality go a long way. I have always had artwork from my kids hanging up, along with a picture of my great-grandmother, June, the original owner of my green sewing machine, and myself as a kid. Additional tips, some of my favorite discoveries during this research phase. Dividers are great in a drawer. These drawer sections are made from wood caddies that can be removed and used as kits. Kitting with my very Wisconsin accent nasally, kitting was one of those aha moments for me. You put your cooking utensils and pots and pans near the stove, and you put your dish soap and sponges near the sink, and your storage containers near the fridge. The closer an item is to where it's needed, the better. Does this sound like your kitchen? This helped me identify just why I'm so frustrated with my kitchen. And it easily translates into the inefficiencies in my craft room as well. Things were not efficiently laid out. IKEA sells some wooden boxes and drawer dividers so you could make your own drawer and caddy combinations, such as these on the screen. Storing spools and cones. Ooh, this is a big topic. So much could be said on storing spools and cones. Exposed wooden peg storage is the pretty standard, the icon of all the pretty Pinterest-worthy sewing rooms, but sun exposure is a real issue. Shallow drawers are a great alternative. In drawers, the threads can lay down to be viewable all at once. And you can use a spice rack insert, IKEA sells those, or slats of wood, as I did. I used paint stir sticks to organize the rows. And the stir sticks are really cute. They've got little ruler markings on them, so that was extra perfect. I loved it. The work triangle of sewing. Put your pressing surface on your dominant hand side. Otherwise, you'll always be tangled in cords. This is kind of a no-brainer, but it's one of those things I mindlessly tolerated for far too long, and now I have a good work triangle going. Wanted to include a picture here, but I'll make sure to include that in the tour when we're done. While designing my room to meet all my needs, I realized I was using the same problem-solving formula over and over, and what others would call my most creative solutions, I see as pure resourcefulness. First, you identify the problem or the need. And for example, I really needed to keep the hot iron away from my pets and kids. Second, define the restrictions. Absolutely no cords on the ground. I don't want anyone tripping over them. Also, make the iron impossible to knock over if any cord does get pulled. Then zoom out and generalize. The iron needs to be out of reach, say anywhere above 36 inches off the ground, but still close enough to where I can reach it while sitting. So that means it can be anywhere where I can reach, but not my toddler. Finally, explore unconventional avenues that accomplish the same end goal. For a long time, I wanted to have an outlet on the ceiling. I thought, well, that cord will never touch the ground, and I could hang a shelf from the ceiling and set the iron on that shelf. But unfortunately, there wasn't an easy way to reconfigure the electricity without drawing from the same circuit that the light was on, and that would be super annoying as the iron ticks on and off. So I kept it out of reach in the opposite direction, too low to reach. There is an extension cord routed under the floor to my table, and no one will ever trip on it. There is a removable piece of flooring underneath where you see this circled in red. There's a removable piece of flooring, so if we ever do need to get to that cord, we can. But otherwise, it is out of sight and very safe. So half of the problem was solved, but I wanted to make sure that the iron couldn't tip over and become a fire hazard. I searched Goodwill for a heavy stand, preferably metal, that would work with the dimensions of my iron. and you can see the evolution of what I had found. How about a coffee mug rack? I could hook an iron on that, wouldn't go anywhere. Or a doll stand, or a banana holder. Why not? I eventually decided on this handy little stand. I'm not entirely sure what it was originally intended for, but I committed to drilling 2 holes in my tabletop. Eek. And now that iron isn't going anywhere. Plus, bonus, the automatic shutoff function on the iron still works when it's hanging on this little hook. Isn't that the best thing ever? So in this picture, you can see where the red arrows are directing. That's where the cord goes through the table down into the floor. So another big problem to solve was dealing with my sewing machine cords. After making this pretty room, the last thing I wanted were ugly cords going through my workspace. Yet I couldn't get myself to cut a big, huge hole in my brand new countertop. So I used a jigsaw and Dremel to narrow these boxes that I found, which are actually washing machine hookup boxes. And I installed them into the wall behind my table. I have no problem cutting into a wall. I didn't want to cut into my table. So the included faceplate made it look very polished, and it is one of my most proud features. It's super easy to thread that cord through, and off you go. So all this we have observed and learned, and now we're to the logistics. How are we going to make this happen? Time to figure it out. We estimated the construction time to be March to June, with the floors in by May. Ha! That was ambitious. Before starting a big change, consider what needs to be done before the remodel can begin. There are some undeniable truths in DIY projects. These are ones I have learned the hard way, but I'm going to pass them on to you right now. Remodeling always displaces life into another area. Closing off access means heavier foot traffic in another room. Are you ready for this new flow? Will your front door traffic now be going through your dining room? Will you need to install more baby locks or park your vehicle somewhere else? Also think about keeping a small stash of craft items in the new location, in a temporary location, while everything else is packed away. Because progress on your other projects stops. You won't have time to work on other things or dig out that one notion or something in the middle of a remodel if you ever want the remodel to end. Think about what holidays, birthdays, or special events might come up that your space won't be accessible for. What projects are associated with those events? Next, ask about city permits, find about ways to recycle and responsibly dispose of your construction waste. Some of the kind of boring stuff, but still very important. And the note on the side explains some of those things that we did. We recycled our carpet and pads at Surgenian's for a small fee. That's where I learned how to hook up, drive, back up the whole 9 yards, my car with a trailer. Super proud of that. Rent construction debris bags. We didn't actually have to rent anything. We were able to just slowly do a little bit in our normal trash each week, which was very thankful for. Donate supplies to Habitat for Humanity, but call them first. They will remove and haul away kitchen cabinets, which is pretty cool. You don't have to do a thing. They will take your old kitchen out for you. And finally, decide how will you get your supplies to your house. Do you need to borrow a vehicle or trailer like we did? Put the owner of that trailer or vehicle's timeline into your own timeline as a thoughtful, foreseeing kind of thing. So what can I afford to do? All these ideas are great, but we got to bring it down to dollars and cents right now. So our remodel cost $5,133 and took 40 weeks to complete. This is the breakdown of our expenses. I was very frugal with our spending, which allowed us to splurge on heated floors. which, by the way, my joints are thankful each and every day that we put this in. I honestly would put that in the essential category because it made our room so much more usable. Also, good to note, if you think it's time to finally buy that one tool, you're probably right. Do it ahead of time. Phase 4, we have gotten to the action one. Yeah, celebration. Action. All right, construction time. Ha, that was not our construction time. Actual construction time was March to December. Well, we're pretending December was done. When you feel like you're ready as you'll ever be, dive in. If you've done your homework, things should start to fall into place. Well, haha, construction never goes as planned. Now is the time you get to start shopping. Yay, exciting! And yes, has anyone ever been this excited about laminate flooring before? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So I'm going to highlight 2 big places I shopped. Craft rooms have become synonymous with IKEA, so I made a trip to Oak Creek to figure out what all the hype was about. I bought the list of items here, mainly some electrical, the magnetic wall strip that holds my pliers, and curtain rods. In the end, I didn't become an IKEA super fan. It's okay, but I don't understand the whole appeal. It's also not super accessible, so that could be why. I don't recommend buying curtain rods ever on a mobility scooter. Honestly, even with a regular shopping cart, it'd be hard, but anyway, shopping at the Restore. I am such a fan. There are 2 of these in Madison, one on the east and one on the west side. I got some incredible deals at the Restore, and I love their mission. The Restore is like Goodwill and Home Depot combined. They sell supplies that were donated from businesses and individuals, and the proceeds go to help build Habitat for Humanity homes. Some items are brand new or overstocks. Others were rejected for minor cosmetic issues or simply the wrong color was ordered. Nothing wrong with it. I especially love their trim, flooring, cabinets, which are sold individually or in sets, and hardware. These are some of my favorite finds. The flooring for $100, the whole room was done for $100. That's unheard of. Best deal ever. So we have finally gotten to phase 5, the last phase, share. Enjoy your new space. Use it to spread joy. Much of sewing can be a solitary endeavor, but there is beauty in your act of creating. What you're doing what you're meant to be doing. Your space becomes something more than just a room. It enables you to live out your calling and find fulfillment. One way I shared my room and celebrated its completion was by entering it into Habitat for Humanity's Project of the Year competition. While the room is not 100% made from Restore materials, it still embodies the recycle, upcycle spirit. I was overwhelmed and humbled with the amazing support I received from the Restore and its fans. It was so popular that they asked me to share it with NBC 15. I keep joking with my husband that someday we'll have the room all to ourselves and it won't be on public display all the time. But honestly, this room is meant to inspire, to share, and enable creativity in any way possible. This is one of my favorite pictures of before, during, and after the renovation. It's just really night and day. We call this our candle place now because it is no longer able to hold fires, so it holds candles, and it's pretty. So since the contest, we have hosted my daughter's Girl Scout troop several times for sewing lessons and cookie booth sign making. If not for quarantine, we would have hosted a few more ladies crafting nights by now. So at least I'm really glad to host all of you and share it with you tonight. So that wraps up my presentation. I think we're going to switch over and do, finally, without further ado, see this room. And I am hosting from actually my husband's side of the room. He has his fancy monitors all set up here in his fancy chair. It's nice, new, and comfortable. All right. So let's start the tour. Welcome to my sewing room. I'm going to keep my phone over here for comments. I'll keep checking. So if you have any questions about anything you see me show, or if I missed something, just shout it out. I'll get to it. So let's walk all around here. We're going to first go through the kids area. This is very much their space, and I get to sew, or my husband does his stuff in his office while the kids play. It's all safe. It's all meant for them over here. It's all on their level. We have a couple of IKEA baskets. These are actually from the Restore. The Restore has brand new stuff, like from IKEA, but for like a half or quarter of the price. So great find on that one. Over here with all of their toys. This shelf I call the Beast because, I mean, it's huge, and I had to somehow bring it home on the trailer. Well, I did technically have my husband take this one home because it was so intimidating. This thing is heavy, and it is sturdy, well worth the investment of, I don't know, maybe it was $7,500 or something. Fresh coat of paint, and we are good to go. A couple of baskets from Walmart, so I like the color. And yeah, they have plenty of space for all theirs. And so we're gonna move on into my area. I have my dress form. This is Estelle. We named all of them the other a couple years ago at All Dressed Up. That's right. And so we have a nice mirror area. These are fully adjustable. They are actually on these brackets, if you can see them in here. These are for mounting TVs on the wall. I got a couple of them off of Amazon, and also they're fully adjustable, articulated, and I can put them away when I don't want them, or I can position them so you can see your back. And so it's great for when I do bridesmaids dress fittings, anything like that. So let's tuck them out of the way and let our cameraman through here. I'll talk about my main fabric storing area. So here is an example of when I was talking about all the rolled fabrics. These are all my fleeces in these, and my knits in here. This is a pantry cabinet from the Restore. These were all just flat shelves to begin with, and I put these like riser boxes around them, so that kind of hugged all the fabric in place. I'm trying to remember the measurements on these, but I would say these are, well, I have a ton of rulers here. It's probably, I think they're like 6-8 inches. I wouldn't go any higher than that for drawers. Keep them fairly shallow. Avoid that like 10 to 12 inch drawer. That's just too deep for fabric. You're going to end up stacking. You're going to end up losing things. Here, I'll pause, talk about the finish on here. Amazingly, none of these cabinets came together as a set. These are all individual, different, unique cabinets. None of them are the same color. All of the trim is different, but you have to look really close. The white paint unifies them, but also this finish. This is a textured, paintable wallpaper. And then I put this silver, I did buy an antique paint, but actually I used just the acrylic craft paint and kind of just sponge antiqued it on, and it just adds like a little bit of character. Yeah, there's these drawers. These are really great, nice and tall. I'm able to have my big roll of paper in here, all of my tools. Move more into the corner. The corner is a little bit more in progress. This little tambour door, I love it. It's so cute. We're going to hook it up. There's ductwork all the way through the cabinet up, and it'll go to the window when I need it. When I was talking about the venting the craft space out, that is that location there. I also put the under cabinet lighting. Very, very handy here. Oh, here's my magnet strip for the pliers. One fun thing I have down in the Lazy Susan in the corner, these corners are so hard to make use of, and I thought the best way to make use of a Lazy Susan was to put a divider system in here. So I have my knit scraps, other apparel scraps, and then into flannel, kind of miscellaneous linings and cottons, and then that way, whenever I have scraps, I just throw them in there. And then when I have a project that comes up, I can easily sort through my scraps and then make a scrappy project or trims or what have you. And then any of the smaller, long, narrow strips I put in this little basket, and this is what I tie up my knits and slippery remnants with. I've got them right on the table there. Gotta have one of these. Everybody seems to have one of these fancy carts. I got mine off of eBay, but really they're all the same. But highly recommend that. I just have a sorting system for my recyclables and then like my current fabric scraps for my current project right now. Onto my work surface here. These are the cord channels that I was talking about. So you can see they just tuck in right there. Nice and neat. My fancy thread drawer. If you're wondering about the cutout in the middle of there, there's actually a bracket for the table under there. This is the only spot for this drawer, so I had to kind of notch it out and then make it fit. One thing I wanted to mention with the setup of my work area, this is like my home base right here. This is my command center. And if I were to sit here and just wave my hand, it's kind of this magic wave, that's where your first wave, literally, of supplies is located. Everything you use on a daily basis is within arm's reach. If it's not daily use kind of thing, it goes somewhere else, anywhere else. But that is like one of my top tips. Have your command center, and then obviously you would use your scissors, your pens, all of your things, including then the notions. That's what that location really is based off of. So if I need to change out sewing feet, any of those, they're right there. My pieces in there. So kind of in the first wave, but then also just a little bit further out. This is more in the middle of my shared space between my space and my daughter's. This shelf I made so that I could fit my paper cutter without having to take the cutter out to use it. That's fun. And then variety of pens and things handy. My interfacings, and then this one's just fun to look at too. It's kind of like the spools over there. The codes are all nice and ring ordered. This one is a really cool thing here. This is just an adjustable tension rod for curtains that I put in the drawer. And then if my stash of spools needs to grow, I can just expand or corral them back in. Nice and handy to have. And then my zippers are all gathered by if they're separating, the general length of them, like that, so they're easy to find. Move on to my daughter's space over here. Like I said, I needed to access this door still. We didn't want to just close it off. So these spindles here are from the restore, and they actually come out, and there's a whole complicated locking system, and the table actually folds down so we can get in there, like a Christmas tree, and those kind of couple times a year things are stashed away in there. She also has a cart and a little organization system. Oh, I see. She must have messy stuff in there. She flopped it with a piece of paper. But otherwise, she keeps it pretty well and tidy. I kind of enforce that rule a little bit. One fun thing in this one, it's kind of hard to show, but this cabinet was super important to what was going on the other side of the wall. We actually have a shoe cubby that eats up some of this cabinet space, so there was parallel projects going on there. Again, we have under cabinet lighting, and I forgot to mention my handy light in the middle. This one's from IKEA. Really great. I highly recommend it. It can go anywhere I need it to be. It even reaches over towards my serger too. So love having that. Over here, I just have some decorative things that goes back to my, reasons why I sew, those little bits of inspiration. And then this is my great grandmother with me. I think I'm like 6 or 7 in that picture, so that's a special one for me. That, and then I should also mention the artwork in the room and the hallway are paintings from my dad. So those are also inspiration for me too. One of the other really random happy accident kind of things that came out of the room was extra supplies, and I ended up putting a cat litter box cover together. It matches the room. You never know what it is. The extra flooring pieces tiles on here really nicely, so it kind of camouflages. Um, and then I think I got this one from a rummage sale. I know I'm always thrift shopping everywhere. Um, People, let's see, a couple more fabric drawers under here. Um, yeah, and otherwise, I mean, just I mentioned the heated floors there. So nice to have. I'm gonna quick look for comments here. Kathy Toucher says that the mirror mounts are brilliant. So thank you, Kathy. Let's see. Eileen asked, did you shop the restore incrementally for a specific item, or did you use an ongoing master list for reference? That's a good point. The restore tends to rotate so often that you just have to go lots of times before you'll find exactly what you'll need. And for me, it's close enough where I could go fairly often. But I did, yes, also have a master list. I always knew exactly what size I needed for any cabinet or the square footage I needed to cover, that sort of thing. Dropbox was a really good way to stay organized. It's an app for your phone, and you can also get it to then link up to your laptop, or your significant other can also stay linked up that way, and you can share documents, measurements, that kind of thing. It helps it be much more organized for that. Let's see if there's any other more. What type of under-counter lights did you use? Those are IKEA lights. It is a little complicated to buy the under-counter lights at IKEA. They make it look really difficult, but honestly, if it looks right, and you go by the name, you have a light bar, you have a transformer conductor piece, and that's really all you need. It's mainly those two. It makes it look so complicated in the showroom, and maybe that's why I'm not a fan of IKEA, sorry. But I do recommend the IKEA lights because they were really nice, easy plug, and you're good to go. I didn't need to wire it into the current electricity in the room or anything, just an extra outlet, that's all was needed. Let's see, Abby says, I rent. Do you think I could find storage at the restore that's not permanent the way cabinets are? Yes, yes. The restore has a ton of stuff. They have everything from the dining room tables, hutches. A hutch might be really a good option because it's structural. You can go vertically, so you'll get more bang for your buck in any, especially renting if it's a small space. That's probably the way to go. Bookshelves, filing cabinets. I suppose filing cabinets. That makes me think of our other here. Also technically an IKEA item, but from the restore for a great price. It wasn't white to begin with. I again refinished it to match, and this is a larger filing cabinet, so you can fit the wider, the legal size files in those. So that might be a really good one. And then the bookshelf on top, that actually was not together. I had to cut it down a little bit. It was a little too tall. I'd have to make things complicated. But it worked out really well. And I could see doing something like this in an apartment too, where you wouldn't necessarily have to build it in, but we just chose to for just the longevity of it. Sounds good storage. Yeah, exactly. So, I think we've gotten through a lot of the comments. If you'd like to keep leaving comments, if you want to email me, feel free to. I am all about sharing this. I hope that you found this talk informative and that I didn't just ramble on for far too long. I also appreciate everyone being so patient with the tech aspect. This is all very new, so I'm glad that we were able to complete this talk, the tour, all of it. And thank you again. Stay safe, MASG. You're doing a great job helping others, helping our community. So keep pushing that good spirit forward. So I'll bid you adieu. Have a good night, and I hope to see you again soon, whenever we can meet again. Bye for now.